King Valdris stood at the tall window of his palace and looked at the 3 moons rising over his planet. His hands shook as he held a medical report that would change everything. The doctors had given him the worst news a father could hear. His daughter Princess Lirelei was dying. The princess had been sick for many months now. She could barely walk without getting tired. Her skin was pale and her breathing was weak. The best doctors in the Zephyrian Empire had tried everything they knew. Nothing worked. They said she had maybe 3 months left to live. Valdris had ruled the Zephyrian Empire for 40 years. He had won wars and made peace with enemies. He had built cities and made his people happy. But he could not save his own daughter. The king felt more helpless than he had ever felt in his life. A soft knock came at his door. His advisor, Captain. Nexus walked in. The captain was an old friend who had served the royal family for many years. He saw the pain in the king's eyes and knew what the meeting was about. "The human ambassador is here to see you," Captain Nexus said quietly. "Jake Coleman is waiting in the main hall." The king nodded. He had asked Jake to come for a reason that would shock everyone in his court. For weeks, Valdris had been thinking about something he had heard. There were stories about humans and how they could survive almost anything. They lived on a planet with heavy gravity and dangerous weather. They got stronger when things got harder for them. Jake Coleman walked into the throne room a few minutes. Later, he was a tall man with kind eyes and gray hair. He had been the human ambassador to the Zephyrian Empire for 5 years. Jake had always been fair and honest in his dealings with the king. He was someone Valdris trusted. "Your Majesty," Jake said as he bowed slightly, "you asked to see me urgently." The king got up from his throne and walked down to meet Jake face to face. This surprised Jake because the king never left his throne during formal meetings. Something was very wrong. "Ambassador Coleman," the king said, "I need to ask you something that will sound crazy, but I am a desperate father who will try anything to save his child." Jake listened carefully as the king told him about Princess Lirelei's sickness. He explained how their medicine had failed and how little time she had left. The king's voice broke several times as he spoke about his daughter. "I have heard stories about your people," the king continued. "Humans seem to get stronger when faced with hard times. Your bodies adapt to difficult conditions. I want to send my daughter to live with humans on Earth. Maybe being around your people will help her get better." Jake was quiet for a long moment. He had not expected this request. Taking care of a dying alien princess was not part of his job as an ambassador. It was dangerous and could cause problems between their governments. "Your Majesty," Jake said slowly, "this is a very big responsibility. Earth is different from your world. The gravity is heavier and the air is different. It might make her sickness worse." "She is going to die anyway," the king said with tears in his eyes. "At least on Earth. She might have a chance. I have read about human medicine and how you help people get stronger. Please take her with you. I will give you anything you want." Jake thought about his own daughter, who had died in an accident many years ago. He remembered the pain of losing a child. He looked at the king and saw a father who would do anything to save his daughter. "I would need to talk to my government," Jake said, "and we would need doctors who understand alien biology. It will not be easy." "I understand," the king replied. "But will you try?" Before Jake could answer, the throne room doors opened. Princess Lirelei walked in slowly, supported by 2 servants. She was very thin and pale, but her eyes were bright and determined. She had been listening from outside the door. "Father," she said in a weak voice, "I want to go to Earth. I want to try." Jake looked at the princess. She was young, maybe 20 years old in human terms. Despite being very sick, she stood as straight as she could. There was something strong about her spirit that reminded him of human determination. Princess, Jake said gently, Earth will be very different from here. It will be hard for you. I am already dying, she replied. Hard is better than dead. Her simple words hit Jake like a punch. Here was a young woman facing death with more courage than most people showed facing minor problems. Maybe she did have something in common. With humans, after all. The king walked over to his daughter and held her thin hands. Lirelei, you do not have to do this. You can stay here with me. No, father, she said. I want to live. If the humans can help me get stronger, then I want to try. I am not afraid. Jake made his decision. Your Majesty, I will take the princess to Earth. I cannot promise she will get better, but I promise I will do everything I can to help her. The king fell to his knees and grabbed Jake's hands. Thank you, he whispered. You give me hope when I had none left. Over the next few days, Jake made arrangements for the trip to Earth. He contacted doctors and government officials. Many people thought the idea was crazy, but Jake convinced them to try. Princess Lirelei spent her last days on her home planet learning about Earth and human culture. She studied basic English and asked many questions about how humans lived. Despite being sick, she was excited about the adventure ahead. The night before they left, the king came to see his daughter one last time. I love you, he told her. Come back to me strong. I will try, father, she promised. The humans will teach me how to be strong like them. The next morning, Jake and Princess Lirelei boarded a ship bound for Earth. As they left the Zephyrian system behind, neither of them knew that this journey would change not just the princess, but the entire galaxy. The ship landed on Earth after a long journey through space. Princess Lirelei felt the heavy gravity pull at her weak body as soon as she stepped outside. She had to lean on Jake's arm to keep from falling. The air smelled different and felt thicker than what she was used to on her home planet. Jake had brought her to Colorado, where his sister Emma lived. Emma Coleman was very different from Jake. She was shorter and had strong muscles from years of physical training. She had been a soldier in the Marine Corps before becoming a fitness trainer. When Jake called to ask if she could help take care of an alien princess, Emma thought he was joking. Emma's house sat in the mountains outside Denver. The view was beautiful, but the thin air made it even harder for Lirelei to breathe. When Emma first saw the princess, she was shocked by how thin and weak she looked. Jake, what have you done? Emma whispered to her brother. She looks like she might break if I touch her. She's stronger than she looks, Jake replied. Give her a chance. Emma showed Lirelei to a small bedroom with a window that looked out at the mountains. The princess sat down on the bed and stared at the strange landscape. Everything was so different from the crystal cities and floating gardens of her home world. The first few days were very hard for Lirelei. The heavy gravity made walking difficult and painful. She got tired just going from her room to the kitchen. Simple tasks like eating Earth food or using human technology confused her. Several times, Emma found her crying quietly in her room. I thought I was brave, Lirelei told Emma one evening. But everything here is so hard. Maybe I made a mistake coming here? Emma sat down next to her on the bed. Listen, princess, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you keep trying even when you're scared. That's what humans do. Emma decided to start slowly with Lirelei's training. Each morning she had the princess walk to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. It was only 50 yards, but it took Lirelei almost 10 minutes the first time. By the end of the week, she could do it in 5 minutes. Dr. Lisa Park came to check on Lirelei every few days. Dr. Park was an expert in alien biology who worked with the government. She was amazed by what she saw happening to the princess's body. Her cells are adapting faster than I expected, Dr. Park told Emma and Jake. The stress of Earth's gravity and atmosphere is forcing her body to get stronger. It's like she was designed for this kind of challenge. After 2 weeks, something interesting happened. Some children from the neighborhood came to see the alien princess. Most were curious and friendly, but a few were mean. They called her names and made fun of how she walked. "Look at the weak alien," one boy said. "She can't even walk normal." Instead of hiding, Lirelei stood up as straight as she could. "I may be weak now," she said in broken English, "but I will get stronger. Humans taught me that anyone can get stronger." Emma was proud of how the princess handled the bullies. That evening, Emma asked Lirelei if she wanted to learn how to defend herself. "Yes," Lirelei said without hesitation. "Teach me to be strong like human women." Emma started teaching Lirelei basic self-defense moves. At first, the princess could barely throw a punch without falling over. But she never gave up. Every day she practiced the same moves over and over again. 3 months after arriving on Earth, Lirelei received terrible news from home. Jake got a message saying that General Koreth had taken over the government. He claimed that King Valdris was not fit to rule because he had sent his daughter to live with aliens. The general had put the king in prison and declared himself the new ruler. Lirelei cried for hours when she heard the news. Her father was in danger, and she was too far away and too weak to help him. Emma found her in the backyard, hitting a tree with her bare fists until her hands bled. "Stop," Emma said, grabbing Lirelei's hands. "Hurting yourself won't help your father." "I should be there," Lirelei said through her tears. "I should be fighting to save him." "You're not ready yet," Emma replied. "But maybe someday you will be. If you really want to help your father, you need to get stronger. Much stronger." That night, Lirelei made a decision that would change everything. She asked Emma to make her training much harder. She wanted to push her body to its limits and beyond. She was tired of being weak and helpless. Emma warned her that harder training might be dangerous for someone who was still recovering from illness. But Lirelei insisted she was ready. She had been watching Emma train other humans and saw how they pushed through pain to become stronger. The next morning, Emma woke Lirelei up before dawn. "If you want real training," Emma said, "we start now." Emma made Lirelei run up and down the mountain trail behind her house. When Lirelei fell down from exhaustion, Emma helped her up and made her keep going. When her legs gave out, Emma carried her home and told her they would try again tomorrow. Dr. Park was worried about the intense training. Her body might not be able to handle this kind of stress, she warned Emma. But something amazing was happening. Instead of getting weaker, Lirelei was getting stronger. Her alien biology was responding to the human training methods in ways that surprised everyone. Her muscles grew quickly, and her endurance improved every week. More importantly, her mind was changing too. She stopped thinking of herself as a weak princess who needed protection. She started thinking like a fighter who could overcome any challenge. The human way of thinking was becoming part of who she was. 4 months after arriving on Earth, Lirelei could run 3 miles without stopping. She could defend herself against multiple attackers in practice fights. Her pale skin had become darker from spending time in the sun, and her thin body had developed real muscle. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The fear and sadness were gone, replaced by determination and confidence. She no longer looked like a dying princess. She looked like someone who was ready to fight for what she believed in. Emma knew that Lirelei was becoming something special. A combination of alien biology and human training was creating a warrior unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But Emma also knew that this was just the beginning. If Lirelei wanted to save her father and her people, she would need to become much more than just physically strong. One evening, as they watched the sunset over the mountains, Lirelei turned to Emma and said, "I understand now why humans are so strong." You never accept that something is impossible. You always believe you can get better. Emma smiled. That's right, Princess. And now you're starting to think like one of us. Neither of them knew that halfway across the galaxy, General Korath was making plans that would soon threaten not just the Zephyrian Empire, but many other worlds as well. The weak princess he remembered would soon return as something he never expected. 6 months had passed since Princess Lirelei first arrived on Earth. The change in her was so complete that people who knew her before would not recognize her now. Her body had grown strong, and her mind had become sharp. The sickness that nearly killed her was completely gone. Dr. Park could not believe the test results when she examined Lirelei. This is impossible, she told Jake and Emma. Her immune system is now stronger than most humans. Her muscle density is incredible. It's like her body was waiting for the right conditions to unlock its true potential. Emma had been training Lirelei every day for months. The princess could now run 10 miles through the mountains without getting tired. She could lift weights that would challenge experienced human athletes. More importantly, she had learned to think like a fighter and a leader. Jake received regular updates about what was happening in the Zephyrian Empire. The news was getting worse every week. General Korath had not stopped with taking over one planet. He was using the Zephyrian military to attack neighboring star systems. 3 worlds had already fallen under his control. Korath told people he was building a great empire that would bring order to the galaxy. But refugees who escaped Earth told a different story. The general was enslaving entire populations and stealing resources from conquered worlds. Anyone who resisted was killed or imprisoned. When Lirelei heard these reports, she wanted to return home immediately to fight Korath. But Jake and Emma convinced her she was not ready yet. Being strong was not enough. She needed to learn how to lead people and plan military operations. Jake arranged for Lirelei to meet Colonel Ryan Mitchell at a nearby military base. Colonel Mitchell was an expert in special operations and unconventional warfare. He had fought in many difficult battles and won against impossible odds. When Colonel Mitchell first saw Lirelei, he was not impressed. "You want me to train an alien princess to be a soldier?" he asked Jake. "This is not a game. Real warfare gets people killed." "Give her a chance," Jake replied. "She's tougher than she looks." Colonel Mitchell decided to test Lirelei with a brutal training exercise that usually broke experienced soldiers. He made her crawl through mud under barbed wire while explosions went off around her. Then she had to climb over high walls and run through an obstacle course designed to exhaust grown men. Lirelei completed every challenge without complaining. When other soldiers would have quit, she kept going. Her alien physiology gave her advantages that impressed even the tough colonel. Her reflexes were faster than any human, and her endurance seemed unlimited. "Where did you learn to push through pain like that?" Colonel Mitchell asked her after the test. "From humans," Lirelei replied. "Emma taught me that pain is just weakness leaving the body. Jake taught me that giving up is the only real failure." From that day forward, Colonel Mitchell became Lirelei's military instructor. He taught her how to use weapons, plan battles, and lead troops under pressure. She learned faster than any student he had ever trained. The most important lesson Colonel Mitchell taught her was about human military philosophy. "Humans fight differently than other species," he explained. "We don't just try to defeat our enemies. We try to inspire our allies. A human leader wins by making everyone around them better." Dr. Park made an amazing discovery during one of her examinations of Lirelei. The genetic condition that had made her sick was not a weakness at all. It was a dormant adaptation that activated when her body faced the right kind of stress. Her ancestors must have evolved this trait millions of years ago, Dr. Park explained. When Zephyrian society became peaceful and comfortable, There was no need for these genes to activate, but Earth's challenges triggered them. She's not just healthy. Now, she's become what her species was always capable of being. News from the Zephyrian Empire continued to get worse. Koroth had formed an alliance with other military leaders from different species. They called themselves the Galactic Order and claimed they were bringing peace through strength. In reality, they were conquering and enslaving anyone who opposed them. Resistance groups began forming on conquered worlds, but they needed weapons and leadership. Most importantly, they needed hope. Many people had given up fighting because they believed Koroth was too powerful to defeat. Jake showed Lirelei videos of her people suffering under Koroth's rule. Entire cities had been destroyed for resisting. The new government. Her father was still alive, but remained in prison. Koroth had declared that King Valdris would be executed as soon as his weak daughter was captured and brought back. He thinks I'm still the same sick princess who left home, Lirelei said as she watched the videos. Koroth has no idea what I've become. That could be an advantage, Colonel Mitchell said. In warfare, surprise is often more valuable than superior numbers. Lirelei began planning her return to Zephyrian space, but she would not go back as a princess seeking help. She would return as a leader, offering hope to those who had lost everything. Emma insisted on going with her. You taught me that humans don't abandon their friends, Emma told Lirelei. I'm coming whether you want me to or not. Colonel Mitchell also volunteered to join the mission. He brought a team of human military advisors who specialized in training rebel forces. They had experience helping oppressed people fight against superior enemies. Dr. Park wanted to study how Lirelei's transformation might help other members of her species. She suspected that many Zephyrians could become much stronger if they were exposed to the right challenges. This knowledge could change the course of the war. As they prepared to leave Earth, Lirelei stood once more in the mountains behind Emma's house. She thought about the weak and dying princess who had arrived here just 6 months ago. That person seemed like a stranger now. Thank you, she told Emma and Jake. You gave me more than strength. You gave me a new way to think about what's possible. You always had it in you, Emma replied. We just helped you find it. The night before departure, Lirelei received a secret message from resistance fighters in her home system. They had heard rumors that the princess was still alive and had somehow become a powerful warrior. They were planning to rescue King Valdris, but needed someone to lead them. Tell them the princess is coming home, Lirelei replied, but warn them that I'm not the same person who left. I've learned from the best teachers in the galaxy. I've learned from humans. As their ship left Earth's atmosphere, Lirelei looked back at the planet that had saved her life. She was no longer a dying princess, or even a survivor. She had become something that would terrify General Koroth. When he finally understood what she had become, the galaxy was about to learn what happened. When human determination met alien potential, the war for freedom was about to begin, and it would be led by someone who had discovered that true strength comes not from avoiding challenges, but from embracing them. Somewhere in the Zephyrian Empire, General Koroth was making plans to expand his conquests. He had no idea that his greatest enemy was heading home, armed with the most dangerous weapon in the universe, the human refusal to accept defeat. The journey back to Zephyrian space took 2 weeks. During that time, Lirelei and her human companions planned their first mission. They would not try to attack Koroth directly. Instead, they would rescue political prisoners from a detention facility on the outer moon of Zirion. Intelligence reports showed that hundreds of resistance leaders were being held at the facility. These were people who had spoken out against Koroth's government or refused to surrender their weapons. Many were facing execution within days. Colonel Mitchell studied the prison layout on his portable computer. This is going to be difficult, he told Lirale. The facility has heavy shields and automated defense systems. A direct assault would be suicide. Then we don't assault it directly, Lirale replied. We use human tactics. We make them think we're attacking from one direction, while we actually attack from another. Emma was impressed by how much Lirale had learned about military strategy. The princess was thinking like a special forces commander, not like royalty who expected others to do the fighting for her. Their ship entered the Zarian system carefully, using asteroid fields to hide from Korath's patrol ships. Jake had contacts in the Resistance who provided them with access codes and security information about the prison. The rescue mission began at midnight local time. Lirale led a small team to the prison's main entrance, while Emma and Colonel Mitchell took another team to the back of the facility. The plan was for Lirale's team to create a distraction while the others freed the prisoners. When the guards saw Princess Lirale approaching the main gate, they could not believe their eyes. According to their records, she was supposed to be a weak invalid who had fled to Earth to die. Instead, they saw a powerful warrior wearing human military gear and moving with deadly confidence. "This is Princess Lirale," she announced over the facility's communication system. "I demand that you release all prisoners immediately. Surrender now, and you will be treated fairly." The prison commander laughed when he heard her demand. "The weak little princess thinks she can threaten. You, he said to his guards. "Korath will reward us well for capturing her." The commander ordered all his troops to surround Lirale's position at the main gate. This was exactly what she wanted. While over 100 guards focused on her small team, Emma and Colonel Mitchell led their group through an undefended maintenance. Entrance on the other side of the facility. The battle at the main gate was fierce but brief. Lirale moved faster than the guards expected and hit harder than they thought possible. She used fighting techniques that combined human military training with her alien physical advantages. Guards who tried to shoot her found themselves disarmed. Before they could pull the trigger, her human teammates were amazed by her performance. She fought like someone who had been a warrior her entire life, not like a princess who had only been training for 6 months. The combination of human tactics and alien abilities made her nearly unstoppable in close combat. While Lirale kept the guards busy, Emma and Colonel Mitchell reached the prison cells. They found resistance leaders who had been tortured and starved, but were still alive. Many of the prisoners recognized Emma and Mitchell as humans and were confused about why aliens from Earth were rescuing them. "The princess sent us," Emma explained as she opened cell doors. "She's not the same person you remember." One of the prisoners was Captain Vex, a former Zephyrian military officer who had refused to serve under Korath. He had heard rumors that Princess Lirale was still alive, but assumed they were false hope spread by desperate people. "The princess died on Earth months ago," Captain Vex said. "Everyone knows she was too weak to survive among the humans." "Then you're going to be very surprised," Colonel Mitchell replied as he handed Captain Vex a weapon. The rescued prisoners fought their way to the main gate, where they found Princess Lirale holding off an entire company of enemy soldiers. What? They saw there changed everything they thought they knew about their former princess. Lirale was not hiding behind cover or waiting for others to protect her. She was leading the fight, moving from position to position and inspiring her small team to hold against impossible odds. When she saw the freed prisoners arriving, she smiled and called out orders like an experienced commander. "Captain Vex, take your people to the landing pad," she shouted while deflecting enemy fire. "Emma, cover their retreat. Colonel Mitchell, prepare the explosives." The escape from Zarian was successful, but more importantly, word of the rescue spread quickly through resistance networks. Princess Lirale had returned, and she was nothing like the weak royal they remembered. She was a warrior who fought alongside her people instead of commanding them from safety. Over the next few weeks, Lirelei led several more missions against Korath's forces. Each success brought more volunteers to the resistance. People who had given up hope began to believe that victory was possible. The princess established a hidden base on an abandoned space station in the neutral zone between star systems. Humans and aliens worked together to modify the station into a training facility for resistance fighters. Colonel Mitchell taught guerrilla warfare tactics while Emma trained new recruits in physical conditioning. Dr. Park made an important discovery. During this time, she found that other Zephyrians could also unlock their hidden genetic potential when exposed to proper training methods. Not everyone could become as strong as Lirelei, but many could become much more capable than they had ever imagined. Your transformation isn't unique, Dr. Park told Lirelei. With the right approach, we could strengthen entire populations. Korath's empire depends on people believing they're helpless. We can prove that's not true. Intelligence reports revealed that Korath was becoming concerned about the resistance activities. He had expected opposition to fade away as people accepted his rule. Instead, attacks on his forces were increasing, and his troops were becoming afraid to patrol certain areas. Korath issued a bounty for Princess Lirelei's capture. He wanted her brought back alive so he could execute her publicly and destroy the hope she represented. But his commanders were having difficulty finding her because she moved constantly and never stayed in one place long enough to be tracked. The most important victory came when Lirelei's forces liberated an entire planet called Tafan Prime. World had been under Korath's control for months, and its people were being forced to work in mining operations that stripped their planet of resources. The liberation of Tafan Prime was different from earlier missions. Instead of a quick strike, it required a sustained campaign involving thousands of resistance fighters. Lirelei proved she could command large forces just as effectively as she led small teams. The battle for Tafan Prime lasted 3 days. Lirelei used tactics that combined human military doctrine with alien technology in ways that confused Korath's commanders. She attacked from unexpected directions, used deception to make her forces seem larger than they were, and inspired her troops to fight harder than anyone thought possible. When Tafan Prime was finally free, its people cheered for Princess Lirelei as she walked through the capital city. But she did not accept their praise as a royal receiving tribute. She thanked them as a fellow fighter who had shared the risks and dangers of battle. "This victory belongs to all of us," she told the crowds. "We won because we refused to accept that defeat was inevitable. We won because we learned that anyone can become stronger than they were born to be." News of Tafan Prime's liberation reached every corner of the galaxy. Korath's empire suddenly seemed less invincible. More worlds began planning their own rebellions, and recruitment for the resistance increased dramatically. General Korath finally understood that he was facing something completely unexpected. The weak princess he remembered had become a symbol of hope that threatened everything he had built. For the first time since seizing power, he began to feel afraid. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. Princess Lirelei had proven that Korath could be defeated. Now she would have to prove that his entire empire could be brought down by people who refused to accept oppression as their fate. The final confrontation was coming, and both sides knew it. But only one side had learned the most important lesson. Humans could teach that true strength comes not from power over others, but from the courage to stand up for what is right. The final battle for the Zephyrian Empire began when rebel forces from 12 different star systems united under Princess Lirelei's leadership. What had started as small rescue missions had grown into a massive rebellion that threatened to destroy Korath's grip on power. Lirelei stood on the bridge of her flagship and looked at the fleet assembled around her. There were ships from dozens of species, all crewed by people who had chosen to fight for freedom rather than accept slavery. Human military advisors worked alongside alien commanders, sharing tactics and strategies that none of them could have developed alone. General Korath had fortified the Zephyrian homeworld with every weapon and shield generator in his empire. He knew that losing the capital would mean the end of his rule. Orbital defense platforms surrounded the planet like a deadly metal web, and his most loyal troops were positioned to defend every important target. "He's turned our home into a fortress," Captain Vex observed as he studied the tactical displays. "Breaking through those defenses will cost us thousands of lives." "Not if we do this the human way," Lirelei replied. "Korath expects us to attack his strongest points. Instead, we're going to make him think his weakest points are strong enough to ignore." The battle plan that Lirelei developed was unlike anything seen in galactic warfare before. Instead of trying to overpower Korath's defenses, she would use misdirection and psychological pressure to make him defeat himself, coordinated with resistance cells that were still hidden on the homeworld. These brave people would create diversions and false signals to confuse Korath's forces about where the real attack was coming from. Emma led a team of human marines who would infiltrate the planet and rescue King Valdris while the main battle was happening. Colonel Mitchell commanded the space forces while Lirelei led the ground assault. Dr. Park had developed a way to boost the strength and endurance of volunteer fighters using modified versions of the techniques that had transformed Lirelei. Not everyone could become as powerful as the princess, but many became much more capable than before. The assault began with a feint toward the planet's main spaceport. Korath's forces responded by moving most of their ships to defend what they thought was the primary target. This left other areas vulnerable to Lirelei's real attack, which came from a completely different direction. Lirelei's landing craft touched down in the mountains outside the capital city, just as the sun was rising. She led her troops through terrain that reminded her of the Colorado Mountains, where she had first learned to be strong. The similarity gave her confidence and helped her feel connected to the human mentors who had changed her life. The march to the capital took 6 hours through difficult terrain that Korath's forces had assumed was impassable. When Lirelei's army appeared at the city gates, the defenders were completely surprised. Many of them had never expected to see ground forces at all, let alone ones led by the princess they thought was dead. Word spread quickly through the city that Princess Lirelei had returned. Citizens who had been forced to hide their true feelings about Korath's rule began to show their support for the royal family. Some joined the fighting, while others provided information about enemy positions. The battle through the city streets was intense, but not as destructive as it could have been. Lirelei had learned from humans that winning was not just about defeating enemies. It was also about protecting innocent people and preserving what was worth saving. "Remember," she told her troops over the radio, "we're not conquerors. We're liberators. These people are our friends and neighbors, not our enemies." Korath's forces fought desperately as they fell back toward the royal palace. They knew that defeat would mean the end of everything they had built. But they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Lirelei fought with a combination of alien abilities and human determination that made her seem unstoppable. She moved through the battlefield like a force of nature, appearing wherever her troops needed inspiration or support. Soldiers who served under her said later that following her into battle felt like being part of something greater than themselves. The final confrontation came when Lirelei reached the throne room where Korath was making his last stand. The general had expected to face a small group of rebels that he could easily defeat with his personal guards. Instead, he found himself surrounded by a professional army led by someone he no longer recognized. "You're supposed to be dead," Korath said when he saw Lirelei enter the room. "The reports said you were weak and dying." "The reports were wrong," Lirelei replied calmly. "I learned something important while I was away." I learned that strength isn't about power over others. Real strength comes from the courage to do what's right, even when it's difficult. Koreth drew his weapon and challenged Lirelei to single combat. He was a large and experienced warrior who had never lost a personal duel. But he was fighting someone who had been transformed by the most effective training. Methods in the galaxy. The duel was brief, but decisive. Koreth's traditional fighting style was no match for Lirelei's combination of alien reflexes and human tactics. She moved in ways he couldn't predict and attacked from angles he couldn't defend against. When Koreth fell defeated, Lirelei stood over him with her weapon ready, but did not deliver a killing blow. Surrender, she offered. Your war is over. I will never surrender to a weak princess. Koreth snarled. Then it's good I'm not a weak princess anymore, Lirelei replied. I'm something much more dangerous. I'm someone who learned from humans that anyone can become more than they were born to be. Koreth's surrender marked the end of his empire. But Lirelei knew that winning the war was only the beginning. The real challenge would be building something better to replace what had been destroyed. Emma's team had successfully rescued King Valdris from his prison. The king was weak from months of captivity, but his eyes filled with tears of joy when he saw what his daughter had become. I sent away a sick child, he told her. You've returned as the strongest person I've ever known. I had good teachers, Lirelei replied. The humans taught me that strength comes from facing challenges, not avoiding them. In the days that followed, Princess Lirelei worked to rebuild not just the Zephyrian Empire, but the entire region of space that had been affected by the war. She established new governments based on cooperation rather than conquest, and she created exchange programs that would allow different species to learn from each other. The most important change was the establishment of training centers where beings from many worlds could unlock their hidden potential using methods developed from human techniques. Dr. Park led this effort, teaching others how to help their people become stronger and more confident. Jake became the permanent ambassador between Earth and the new alliance of free worlds. Emma opened a military academy that trained officers from dozens of species in human tactical methods. Colonel Mitchell retired from active duty, but continued to serve as an advisor to resistance movements throughout the galaxy. Princess Lirelei herself changed her title to Commander Lirelei, choosing to be known as a military leader rather than royalty. She continued to lead by example, showing others that true leadership meant serving those who followed you rather than expecting them to serve you. Years later, when historians studied the war that freed the galaxy from tyranny, they would identify the moment when everything changed. It was not when Princess Lirelei returned from Earth, or when she won her first battle, or even when she defeated Koreth. The turning point was when a desperate father made an impossible decision to trust his daughter's life to strangers from a distant world. That act of faith had set in motion events that transformed not just one person, but an entire galaxy. The weak princess who had once been dying from a genetic condition became a symbol of hope for billions of beings. She proved that anyone could become stronger than they ever imagined if they had the courage to face their challenges instead of running away from them. And somewhere on a mountain in Colorado, Emma Coleman still trained people who wanted to learn what it meant to never give up. She would tell them the story of an alien princess who came to Earth to die, but chose instead to live, and in doing so, changed the fate of the stars themselves.